For today, we're gonna spend some time looking at the customer experience essentials of the CXE queues and the dashboards. I'm going to start before we get into the dashboard and start building out dashboards. I'm going to start with a report and kind of explain how a report can kind of translate into the dashboard. So I spent some time this morning building out a report. There's been some changes, like Trey said, with 16, with our current release, like 16.4, 16.4.1. We started by updating our API or our platform to go out and grab those queues and bring them into the system. And so if you're watching this, if you don't have a CXE or Essentials queue, but you have the regular call queues as well, everything I'm about to go over can also be applied to those queues as well. But with 16.4, those essential queues are now being populated within Verify. And we also made some changes as to how those queues or how our software reports on like percentages and the counts for those queues. So some of the reporting, when you're building a report, it's a lot easier or maybe more simplified than what it used to be. So like for our old reports, when you're going out and you're building those call queues, the search sets, you maybe had to build a call queue, pick the user type, maybe user, and so to get those stats. And so that's still the same, but the way those values are going to be calculated will be cleaned up a little bit, especially on the percentage side. So this was my sample report here that I put together this morning. I'm just going to run it for current and previous week. I'm running it for, I believe, the finances call queue is the one in this system that has data. Let's go ahead and generate a report. So here's my basic report here. I'm just bringing in, here's my initial query. We have 36 total calls, 33 answered calls, 3 calls were not connected, 0 voicemail, and 0 abandoned calls. So in the current release, we can get away from the total call sequence counts, and all of that sequence logic is then applied behind the scenes whenever you're reporting on a call queue or a hunt group for that matter. So current release, we can, again, these percentages are calculated looking at the total call count, and instead of all those 0 duration calls that we get when the calls are presented to all of the agents, those calls are being ignored in all the calculations. So we're not looking at it when we're calculating answered or connected or not connected or voicemail or anything like that. So my basic report has the main search. We're looking at the call queue, and then down below we have the grouping. So we're taking a look, at the call queue level up top, and then down here we're looking at the agents, and we're saying, how many calls were presented, how many calls were answered by the agents, what % of their presented calls they answered, how many calls were transferred, and down here, and then your average durations and total call durations. And then below here, I have a chart that just shows the call volume, or how many calls per hour came into my call queue. And so these 3 sections of the report I see a lot when our users are building reports. We want to see how many calls came into the queue, how many calls were answered by the agents, and then some sort of like hourly or some sort of metric as to when they're busy hours, or even a couple of days ago I had a customer build a report by, I think it was the half hour, to break down their call traffic. And so all 3 of these can be broken down into widgets. So instead of waiting until the next day to see this data, or the next week, which you can still do, if you want to see something a little more live or a little more current, we can do that with the dashboard. So I'm going to jump back to the software and then go into our dashboards and widgets. I have a blank dashboard set up. And the nice thing about having a report set up too is that when building a widget, we'll go ahead, select our feature. We're going to do call analytics. Our platform is going to be the Webex demo organization. And then we have the same widget types available here. I'm going to start off with, let's just do call statistics. And then go ahead and click next. And then from here, I'll skip this menu for now and then go to the search sets. So for the search set, if I want to recreate this report, I can either create the search set again by hand, go through, pick out the called queue and the user type being user, and that'll bring me the same search. Or if I have a report already configured here or back in the software, I can click on the existing Webex calling report, go to the dropdown, and then pick my report here. So the search that was used in my report is also going to be applied to my widget. So when trying to get like the counts in the widget to match the counts in the report, instead of trying to jump between the two to select the proper search set, I'm just going to use the report, and that way I know I'm starting off with the same search base. So here my search set's all set. Go back to configuration. I'll just call this call stats. To keep it simple, color we don't care about, although we can always change the color. Go green. Refresh interval, you can pick how fast you want to refresh. And then down here, if I wanted to recreate something like this with total call count, answered, not answered percentage, that kind of stuff, depending upon what values or metrics were important to me, I can just go up the same thing, call counts, your answered call counts, not connected for the calls that didn't connect. And then you could add in the percentages. You can add in, if you want to see abandoned calls, you can add them as well. I mean, it's a matter, it's whatever's important to you. And move answered calls up here, not connected, abandoned here. And then time period, do you want it to be for the current day, current week, previous week, whatever you want to do. Most cases when it's inactive, it's like a live verify system. I see it either for like current day, maybe previous day, if they want to compare the two, like the current day versus the previous day. But in this case, I don't have a lot of live data coming through. So just to keep the stats consistent between the report, I'm going to go back current and previous week. So go ahead and save that guy. I'm going to stretch this out. It's going to refresh or load. And then here we go. So 36, 33, and 3. I've got 36, 33, and 3. So these are the exact same stats. If it was a live system, I could have for the current day. And instead of waiting for that report, now I have the important stats all in my dashboard. Go ahead, make it a little bit bigger text or a little bit bigger font, so it's easier to read. And there we go. So we can, in a live system, we can watch as these metrics and counts and values change throughout the day. Keep an eye on what's going on in my call queues. So if I want to then scroll down, I want to see what my agents are up to, how many calls they're taking, how many calls they're being presented, how many calls they're answering. I can then either create a new widget. So then the widget itself would be, if I scroll down, go to the same options as before, it would be the grouping statistics option here. Or I can just simply, since I'm using the same search, go to copy and then edit the widget. Oh, right up here, that's right here. Be that way. We can go ahead and edit this guy. Change it from the call stats to the grouping stats. It's just me, the way I do it. I'm just being lazy. I don't feel like going back and then reselecting the search set and going through it. You can do it either way. In this case, I'm just going to go to grouping. I'm using the same search set because I copied the widget. We can change the color back to blue or charcoal or whatever color. And then going down to the grouping section, I want to group on, in this case, I grouped on the call party name. So we'll go ahead and scroll down or just search call party name. We'll turn off grouping for an associated because we don't need to see those. And then just select how we want to display our users. Do last name, first name. We're going to sort by highest count. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10. So I'm going to change my maximum grouping count to say 50, not 185, but 15. And then select my stats. So total call count, we call it presented. Then we can do answer call counts. I don't care so much about not connected because those are just the ones this is having total call count and answer call count is more of your classic calls presented versus calls answered. We can do answer percentage. And really when it comes to like abandoned calls and voicemail calls, they're not tracking against the agents. Those are more back against the queue. So they would show up in my original widget. Time period, we'll keep the same for the same current previous week. And I mean, for this widget, again, you can make any changes you want. You don't have to follow what I'm doing. But when trying to replicate my report to something more live, I think this will do it. Yeah, I mean, we can do duration too. Might as well. And then save. And then this is going to shrink. Let that refresh. And then there we go. Change my appearance. We're going to scroll down, change my vertical spacing, something a little more compact so I can see it. Maybe not that compact. Font size, make it a little bit bigger. And then if we want to, we can play around with our horizontal spacing. Maybe extend that a little bit. And there we go. So in a live system, same thing. This will refresh throughout the day. I wouldn't necessarily always have current and previous week. I have maybe something a little more current day. And there we go. So now I've basically replicated, the first two parts of this report, your Q values or your Q metrics, and then your agent stats. And then next would be, more of a historical. I want to see my busy hour, my busy date, or my busy half hour, and go from there. So we can go back to the same. We can either start from scratch again or just make another copy. I'll go ahead and start from scratch. Select call analytics. My platform again is going to be Webex demo. And then we can do call volume by time period. So this will give me a graph or a chart. Don't necessarily need a title. If you want to put a title, you can. I'll turn that off for my system. Pick your color, go orange. And then your time period. So this one defaults a day a week. I want to see hour of day. So we'll go ahead and click on it, and I can do hour a day, quarter hour, half hour, however we want to do it. In this case, we'll do hour a day. Search set, going back to my initial report. So it's my V2 report. Then time period. Just go back and select current and previous week. So just to recap, I'm using the call volume by time period. I changed my time period type to hour of day. My search set, we're doing, I'm using instead of creating one for the widget, I'm using the V2 reports. And then for time period, current and previous week, so we have some data in there because it's a lab system. And then we'll go ahead and save. Okay, so worth pointing out, my data or the business hours for this queue is looks like it's from 10 o'clock till 7. So we have a lot of blank space here. To get rid of this blank space, we can go ahead and edit, change your time period. And I said it was from 10 o'clock to 7. So we'll do 6:59. So again, click on time period, turn off the all day toggle, and then just select include. And then 10 a.m. or in this case, in my case, 10 a.m. to 6:59. But you can always, whatever hours apply to your queue. And then when it refreshes, it'll look a lot cleaner. And there we go. So we can see how we can hover over, see how many calls are coming to the queue. There are only 36 calls, so we can just see the breakdown of those calls. But you can, again, you can change the widget if you don't want hour, if you want half hour, quarter hour. Dates, you want to see how many calls per day. Since I am doing a widget for the current and the previous week, I can do dates, and then we can see how those 36 calls are broken out by date. Hit reload. And there we go. We can see when the calls came through, or if that's not enough, we can break it down by quarter hour or half hour. There we go. And then, again, you can change the widget. It's really up to you what you want to display. But for like the basic metrics, this would cover, your Q stats, your agent stats, and then any charts or graphs that you want to include. One other widget I really like to throw out there, especially in a busier system, when it comes to just your call volume. Go back to demo here. The utilization or concurrent call activity widget is similar to the historical widget with the chart I just put together. However, it looks at like concurrency or like how many calls are happening at any one point in time. So here, pick my color scheme again. We'll go green. Data interval 10 minutes. And I'll take my search set, go back to my existing report. Same report because I want to see the same data. However, again, if you have a different parameters, you want to include multiple queues in a certain widget, feel free. Just for me, if I'm building like an entire dashboard around one specific queue, I'm going to reuse either the same search set or the same report for everything so that I know the base search is consistent from widget to widget. Time period, again, for in the system. We're doing current and previous week. And then I'm going to go ahead and save this guy. I'll just make him out here. And so this widget, it's not going to look as pretty because we only have 36 calls. However, once it loads, we'll look at concurrency. And so the beauty of concurrency, in this case, we can do the same thing as this widget back here. And one last time, go back, turn off the all day toggle under the time period, go from 10 a.m. to, I think it was 7. So we use 6:59 and let it refresh. You can also exclude certain days of the week. So if they're not taking calls on the weekends, you could hide those from the results. And then once this loads, so this is looking at concurrency or the utilization. So we're looking at how many calls are coming into the queue and how many calls are active at one point in time. And so this does somewhat reflect the chart up here, but this is looking like more so if I was worried about like my busiest moment in time. So for example, like up here, there's 4 calls at the 3 o'clock hour. So let's say there was more than that. Let's say there was 60 calls between 3 and 4. If those calls are all spread out, you don't necessarily need 60 agents in the queue. If the calls are happening all at one time, and like here in my case, my peak usage is 2. So when it comes to like my agent staffing, I don't need 40 agents available taking all these calls. If my peak usage was 15, then I had 15 calls happening at one point in time. It gives me a better idea of when I need to schedule breaks, schedule lunches, have people available, not available, or when I can when it comes to staffing, you can use these 2 widgets in a combination to identify when you're busy, when you're not busy, and just kind of what's going on with this queue. So the historical view here, you can also turn on or off certain days to get a better idea what's going on. In fact, we can see it like this and then go from there. The other widget, let me bring this guy out too. Kind of taking like this data here, the call stats data, and we can kind of do a similar widget if we pick the call distribution widgets. So here, call distribution, especially if you're working with like managers or people who like to see color or like to see more so like charts and graphs other than numbers. Call this one. Save it for me. Color stream is to red, and we're gonna again pick the same search set because I want to keep everything uniform. Time period, same thing. Current and previous week. And then going back, this is looking, so the call distribution widget, if you have like it shows how calls are distributed. So in this case, because I only have the one queue, I would do call party name, and this is going to look at my agents and show me graphically how my calls are distributed. So we're going to do, we can do top 5, we can do 10, 15, last name, first name, and then if we save it, actually, I'm going to make one more change to this widget once it loads, because this widget, once it loads, it's going to show me the number of calls presented. So this is looking at a breakdown of my agents with their total call count. Now, because I used the report that I created before, this is looking at total calls. And so this is looking at how many calls were presented, not answered. So if I wanted to change this, what I would do, if I wanted to build a report looking at calls answered, so let's change this to, so I know it's calls answered, I would come back to my search set. In this case, I wouldn't use my existing report because my report is looking at total calls. We'll go back to the widget setting. We'll go back to my answered calls, and the search set that I would use in this case, again, depends it depends what you want to present or how you want to present it. It would be, so I would do a couple different things. Called queue, go back to finance, and then called user, in this case, is user. Nope, not that one, sorry. Call party user type, in this case, get rid of that guy. We do want it to be user. And then one of the great criteria that I really love to use is the call scenario type. So I only want to see calls that are answered. So instead of doing total calls, we're going to do answered calls. And then this will filter my results by the number of calls answered. So I'm looking at now how many calls have been answered by the different agents in my queue. So now I can see Wilson did 18, Jalen did 2, Willow did 3, or actually Willow Kennedy 4. So this is a different breakdown. So if I go back up here, we should have, there's Wilson with 18. So now I'm looking at this column. Instead of this column, I can see the call breakdown as to not who's being presented with calls, but who's actually answering the calls in here. I know we're kind of running low on time. So I think this kind of gives you a kind of an overview of what you can do with the different widgets. Also worth mentioning, if you're new to the widgets and dashboards, with each dashboard, if you click on the 3 dots here and you edit, there's the public access permalink where you can share a public copy of the dashboard where users outside or anybody with the URL will see a copy of it. Now I have it set up for the default for local host, so this may this will still work, but it'll still work. It just wouldn't work outside of my laptop. But go ahead. So anybody with the URL, with the IP address or the server name, who hits this link will see a copy of the dashboard. It'll refresh alongside the main dashboard here, on its own. But the users who access this cannot make modifications. So if you want to put this on a TV screen somewhere, if you want to share it, maybe you have managers or other users, you want them to see the data, but you don't want to give them access to verify, or maybe they don't want access to verify. You can give them a permalink. The permalinks don't change, so they can definitely bookmark this link and come back to it. You can create one dashboard per every agent and give them their own so they can see their own stats, managers, team. I mean, however you want to do it, whatever, however you build the data out, you can share it. You can build out, multiple dashboards, as many as you need to, and share it with the different users. So definitely, a lot of our users like the permalinks. And if you want to give it some protection, you can require a passphrase to access it too. I'll pause here. Trey, bounce it back to you. Any Q&A?
Awesome. Yeah, great job. We got a few of them and low on time, so I'll try and burn through them fast. We had somebody asking about not connected calls. Does it make sense to relabel to missed calls? And if so, how could one achieve that? Sounds like a job for custom label sets. Is that right?
It is for custom label sets. I don't know if I have one created. No, let me show you where to go. Back in reporting, you can go under the configure section and create custom label sets. So if we added a quick label set, I can do it maybe really quickly. Quick set. We go down to the. I'm going to draw a blank here. Not at the call counts here. I call it what missed calls. I'm in the right spot here. I think that's the right spot. Go ahead and save it. I go back to my dashboard. And then appearance, quick set. If I did it right.
All right.
I did miss call. I didn't do the percentage, but we can see missed calls. So you can do it if you have more than 2 minutes to set it up. But yeah, so you can change your column names. Again, I did it kind of quick. We'll go back under reports for your cluster or your platform. Go to configure, and then you'll see the custom label sets here. You can create multiples and apply them to reports, dashboards, and widgets.
Nice. Yeah, that's one of those underrated features. Really helpful. All right, cool. A couple more questions. It sounds like you might have already answered it, but we'll cover it just in case there's more to elaborate on. Someone's asking, can we make dashboards that do not require login like Cisco CUIC to verify, or must we give the users a login?
Yes, permalinks will do it. You could also, if you do, I know you said not with a login, but if you do have users with logins as well and you want to share dashboards too, you can go under the share function, which will take you to the same edit menu, but just automatically highlight this, and then you can share dashboards with other users. I don't have any users in my lab, but you can come in here, use the share function to share it with other users. And then if you want to share it with anybody, that's where you go into the public access permalink and then turn it on, use this link, and you're all set. And then each dashboard will have its own URL.
Cool. Yeah, those shared dashboards are nice. I know we use them internally here when we're demoing and testing things out. So super good feature. All right, last question I have is, I think it's more along the lines of perhaps real time, but I wonder if we can still provide that data, even if it's not real time. They're asking, is there any ability to see which agents are logged into the queue, similar to the CUCM Hunt Group widget, which that one is I believe that's a real-time Hunt Group widget, right?
Yes. Yeah, the real-time Hunt Group widget on the CUCM side just queries it and then shows the stats. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's an API available yet from Webex that gives us the real-time.
So there's not real time, but I was wondering if you knew that if we were able to see, like within the last 10 minutes or so, which agents are logged in or not to a call queue with Webex.
We don't do anything historical as of right now. I know that's on my roadmap, but I'm not the one but my roadmap is not official. I think, I don't know if it's gonna be out there. It might be out with the bigger essentials releases down the road.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on, and we are keeping an eye on real-time capabilities for this integration. We've heard it, from the horse's mouth at Webex. We're waiting on some endpoints there, but right now it's all baked into calling, so we're using what we got.